All right, we are live with Exploring by the Seat of Your Pants. My name is Travis Steffens. I'm with Planet Madagascar, and I'm here to give a talk about Madagascar, its biodiversity, mostly talking about lemurs and some of the work my organization does in Madagascar to help lemurs and to help people live better lives. So let's see if you guys can turn on your mic. We've got Mr. Van Schoot's class in grade 6-7 class in Sarnia. So turn on your mic and give a big hello to everyone watching.
Hello!
Now, if you can switch the mic back off, and then we'll start with a talk today. So my name's Travis, as I mentioned before, and I'm going to take you on a little journey to Madagascar. So I'm going to share with you my screen so you can see some slides and photos and stuff, some videos as well from Madagascar. If you have any problems, just switch your microphone on and let me know, but we should be able to make this work. Like I said, I'm the director of Planet Madagascar. This is a small nonprofit organization here in Canada that works in Madagascar. So we have a team of people working there right now as we speak. I've been in Madagascar since 2007, off and on, doing a lot of lemur research and lemur conservation work. And I'm excited to share with you what we got to see today. So let's get into it. Let me find my thing here. Just got to get the screen ready. 1 second. Okay, this should work. Okay, share screen. Here we go. Okay, so if you can't see this, make sure you turn on the mic and let me know. But you should see a picture of a lemur, and here we go. So, I already mentioned a little bit about myself, but just a few extra things. I'm also a member of the Explorers Club.
We can't see the picture.
Can't see it at all, eh? Okay.
No.
We could for a second, but then just...
It popped up for a second, they said, then it turned right off.
Okay, let me fix that. There is a solution.
Okay.
We can fix that, no problem. Try that again.
We got it.
Beautiful, thank you.
It disappears when I go to full screen. How about now? Okay, so
Yeah.
Come on, guys.
I guess
it disappeared, eh?
Yeah.
Okay, I know what's happening now for sure. We'll figure this out. Technical difficulties will be overcome. Do it again. Start the screen share. There we go. Wonderful. Okay, well, sadly, we'll have to do it this way. So it means that the screen will be a bit smaller and have to click through, but it'll still work. Okay, so I'm a fellow of the Explorers Club, a PhD candidate at the University of Toronto, and I'm a trip leader as well. So I take people to places like Southern Africa, Madagascar, Central America, Russia, and Canada, showing people wildlife around the world. And you can follow me on travelingprimate.com or at Travis Steffens on Twitter. Otherwise, you can follow my organization, planetmadagascar.com. We're also on Facebook. So let's take a little journey from not far from Sarnia, over from Toronto. We'll go to Madagascar. And to get there, you have to cross the entire planet. It's one of the furthest places you can reach, all the way on the other side of the southeast coast of Africa. So it's quite far away, but when you get there, you're met with some amazing landscapes. So this would be on the eastern coast. This is beautiful beaches that you see in Madagascar. There's a massive amount of coastline. Madagascar itself is the 4th largest island in the world. If you're Canadian, that's about the size of Alberta, so it's pretty big. If you're in the States, that would be about the size of Texas, and if you're a European, that would be about the size of France. So it's a very, very large island. And it's diverse. It's full of many different interesting environments. So here you have some beautiful beaches. There's some amazing cloud forests that you can see in the central highlands, in the eastern highlands. This is rainforest that's at high altitude, where a lot of the moisture comes actually from the air. So a lot of trees and plants will grow and suck up the moisture from the air. The opposite type of forest would be a deciduous dry forest. So this is in a way similar to the forest we have, where the trees, their leaves will fall off in winter, just like here, but over there they're doing it in the dry season. And this is to protect themselves from the harsh environment of the dry season, just like our leaves on our trees fall off in the winter to protect themselves from the harsh environment of the wet season. Well, they have an even more spectacular forest, and it's a forest called the Spiny Dry Forest. And this forest is found in the southern part of the country, and all the trees have these weapons to protect them from being eaten by other animals, by animals such as lemurs. So it's really cool. But I want to share with you a little adventure I did with an organization called Adventure Science with fellow Explorer Club members Simon Donato and George Karunas. And it was an adventure into what we call the Devil's Obstacle Course. And this is an area where they have limestone escarpments that form a forest out of stone. So you see these pinnacles of limestone will reach out, razor-sharp knife-like rocks that jut from the ground out, sometimes as high as 100 feet up into the air. And we went there last year to do a survey to look for lemurs. We also wanted to find dinosaur footprints. We also wanted to find caves that would be existing in these limestone areas, and hopefully some archaeological remains. Well, I went ahead of the team on the advanced expedition. We drove, once we arrived in Madagascar, which takes almost 2 days to get to, I drove with the team in Land Cruisers over 3 days to get to this part of Madagascar. So I went there and advanced with the team, and we got there to set up a network of trails and roads to access the site. So this site was extremely remote. So not only is Madagascar remote, but the site we went to is remote. So what we did is we brought our trucks in. We had villagers come and help us build roads across creeks and small rivers and through the savanna until eventually we reached the forest. And when we got to near the forest, myself and 2 of the other expedition members came ahead, like I mentioned, and we went on a journey into the Singi, into this limestone forest. Now, what's interesting about this is essentially an ancient barrier reef, just like you would see off the coast of Australia. So large coral reef extending across the northern part of Australia. Well, at one point on the western part of Madagascar, there used to be a massive coral reef. But over geological time, this reef was pushed out of the water and became part of the land. And this limestone formation is what remains of it. And it's very long. But what's interesting is it's quite narrow. And so in this narrow band, we were hoping to be one of the first teams to ever cross this section of the Singi. So we went out in advance of the rest, and we encountered the Singi pretty quickly. And the Singi is the term for this limestone formation. And it's only 5 kilometers across. But even with our experienced team, we were only moving a kilometer every 5 hours, and it ended up being extremely difficult. Each footstep you would take on that sharp rock would cut through your boot. So you had to be very careful on where you placed your feet, where you placed your hands. We had to wear leather gloves. We had specialized equipment. And we were trying to go out and just to see if we can find a route to get to the other side of the Singi, because on the other side of the Singi would have been an ancient lagoon and eventually an ancient beachhead where we would have hopefully found what we were coming to find, which was evidence of dinosaurs in the form of footprints. So while we were walking along, we meant to be out for about 6 hours. But what ended up happening is we spent a lot of time traveling into this area, trying to get through the other side. But all of a sudden we realized we were kind of stuck. We were having a situation where if we were to go back, we wouldn't make it before daylight. So we thought maybe we should push forward so we can get to the other side of the Singi, and we'd find a place we could camp and then make it back around to our camp, taking another route. Well, this seemed like a good idea at the time. We had seen lots of water going through the Singi, but what we didn't know is the water didn't drain fully on both sides of the Singi. So where we were coming from was where all the water was going to. And where we were walking to is where the water was coming from. So basically on the other side, there was no water. It was bone dry. So we ended up sleeping for 2 nights in the bush. We had satellite phones and radio to stay in touch with our base camp. And we had a real hard time struggling getting through. You can see here some of the caves that we'd have to go in and out of to try to get through the Singi. Sometimes we'd walk on top like you saw before. Other times we'd walk in between. And eventually when we found a place to camp for a night, we had eventually after the first night found a place that had some water. So here's Simon just talking about how kind of rough it was. You got to remember at this time of year when we were there, it's over 40 degrees Celsius, and we're looking for water in a landscape that is bone dry. So here's Simon describing it.
Well, here we are, morning of day 2, and we had an unexpected night camping with no supplies. Our biggest concern, though, was running low on water, and we were basically out of water. We've spent the past few morning hours literally licking the dew off leaves. We pulled water out of tree well. We've just filled all of our bladders and water bottles with water that's preserved in these little limestone kettles. They're almost like mini ponds. They're full of tadpoles, and there's a bunch of zebu that have been grazing here. Evidence is everywhere, so we know that the water's contaminated. It's a risk we have to take. We've treated it with chlorine pills. We've been extra diligent and added more chlorine than recommended. So hopefully that keeps us from getting sick, but having some kind of water keeps us from getting dead, and that's more important.
So Simon wasn't being dramatic there. When we saw this water, we were very excited. And this is actually what the water looked like. This is a tiny little area, no larger than a bathtub. That's about 10 centimeters deep, filled with cattle dung, tadpoles, and other disgusting things, and it smelled terribly. And a lot of people ask me if I was ever in a survival situation, what would I eat or drink to survive? And now I know for a fact I would eat or drink anything it would take to survive. And this water, when we saw it, although it smelled and looked disgusting, didn't seem like an issue because we knew it would be the difference between surviving our adventure and not. And so fortunately, we had chlorine pills. We were able to take some of those pills, put them into the water, treat the water. So the water was disgusting looking. It tasted bad, but it was, for the most part, purified. And then we continued on. Well, we realized at some point, once we had eventually reached the beachhead, this is the area where we had hoped to actually find dinosaur footprints. We realized that going further would be a problem. We had water where we were, and if we went further, we didn't know if there'd get more water. We knew we still had another 30 kilometers to get back to camp. So we decided, even though we weren't pleased about this, to call in a helicopter. So that doesn't always work out in Madagascar because there's very few helicopters. But we had some that worked for the federal government here in Canada. Call ahead to the Madagascar embassy and get a hold of their military. And they eventually, the next day, sent a helicopter to pick us up. Well, what that meant was we were able to, in essence, be rescued from our situation. Where you're seeing here, where we're sitting, we could actually see our nearby our camp from where we were. We were only a few kilometers away at this point, but we'd have to walk through that razor-sharp limestone to get there. By this point, we're quite weak and tired. We really didn't want to go further. So we decided for safety reasons it would be best just to get a helicopter out, which worked out. And when we got out, fortunately in camp, we were all set up. Our base camp was full of supplies. We had a medic there. He hooked me up to an IV. And we went out over the next few days. And instead of crossing the entire Singi each day like we had planned, we decided to localize our expedition closer to base camp, which ended up being fantastic. We discovered one of the largest caves in Madagascar. Lots of different lemur species that were found in the area. We found that they were in this part of the forest. We even found archaeological artifacts and a cool little dinosaur migration route. And so we ended up finding everything. I don't have a lot of pictures of that, but I'll show you a picture of the cave that we found. And so this is the cave that we went into in Madagascar, 35th largest. It was almost 2 kilometers long. And there was a part of the cave where it got so narrow and small, filled with water, that only your neck and above your head would be able to fit through the cave hole. So you would go in and your body would be covered in water and just your head would be out of the water. It's a really, really intense cave, really cool to explore and a lot of fun. Well, I wanted to share that with you just to show you how remote Madagascar is and how incredible it is in terms of the unique landscapes it has and how, in many ways, unexplored it is. I wanted to share with you that so that you can get a sense of how cool Madagascar is. And then I wanted to tell you now about the biodiversity. So this is a lemur, and this is what you think about in Madagascar, but we're not going to talk about lemurs yet. First, we're going to talk about some weird stuff. So this is the eggs of an insect on the bottom of a leaf. So these tiny little eggs will eventually hatch into this, which to me looks like a bunch of flowers or some fungus growing off a tree. But it's actually these cool bugs that live on the edges of branches, eating the nectar of trees. To me, they look like Martians wearing shredded wedding dresses. I think they're just incredible, and they're just so outrageous. And they move in this strange, stilted, robotic fashion, and they don't move very far. They stay put. They stay in these clumps like this. What they do, they actually excrete or secrete a substance that's waxy and sugary. So in essence, this is an insect that poops sugar, and it's incredible. But what's even more incredible is that other animals will come and eat this insect's poop. Things like lemurs and bugs, birds will come and eat it. There's some lemurs who will actually come to the same spot and eat it every single day. Now, I'm brave. I'll go caving. I'll go do expeditions in Madagascar, but I'm not going to try insect poo. Now, fortunately, one of my colleagues is much braver than me, and he tried it, and he said it was sweet at first, but then had a very bitter aftertaste. So I decided it wasn't worth trying. Now, that's all incredible sounding, but would you believe this white insect will actually hatch into a red leaf bug? I'm going to show you that now. So this is the red leaf bug it hatched to, and you can see it actually still hatching. In the bottom right of the photo, you can see one of the bugs starting to hatch. And this is what it looks like as a full-grown adult. Really incredible. So this white little bug turns into a leaf, they call it a leaf-flatted insect. So that's super cool. So if you go to Madagascar, you have a good chance of seeing those. Well, check out this next thing. This thing is just incredible. This is called a web-throwing spider. So instead of making an intricate web between two branches, it makes a small little net. And just like a fisherman throwing a net into a lake trying to catch fish, this will catch a fly as it zooms past the spider. It'll throw the net at it, catch the fly, reel it in like a fisherman, and devour the insect. It's just incredible. Okay, so those two things are cool. Well, what about this next one? This is a giraffe-necked beetle. This outrageous creature is tiny. You could fit it on my thumb, just a small little thing there. And it lives on one particular tree in Madagascar in the rainforests. And the males have really, really long necks, and the females actually have short necks. And they're a type of beetle. They can fly, and they drag this enormous neck wherever they go. It's really cool. Giraffe-necked beetle. Such an outrageous organism. Well, all the insects there are pretty cool. But I don't just like insects. I really love some of the other wildlife they have. And I'm going to show you a gecko, a little video that I took when I was there a while back of an awesome gecko. And see if you can find it.
We're continuing in Mitsinju National Park.
Whoops, let's redo that again.
We're continuing in Mitsinju National Park. Pierre spotted a leaf-tailed gecko. It's one of the hardest species to find in Madagascar. It took me almost 10 minutes before I saw it. It's an amazing creature, perfectly blends in with its surroundings. It's one of the most cryptic animals in the entire country, one of the most cryptic animals in the world. And it's one of the neat things that you can come see when you visit Madagascar. It's no wonder they call it the 8th continent, the wonder of the world.
Okay, so maybe one of you can switch your microphone on.
Hello.
Wonderful. Okay, great. So if you can see on this photo here, we're going to look at my chin. If you go to I guess the left of my chin, you'll see the nose of the gecko. Do you see that there?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. Look at
The eyeball, the belly along the bark there, and then the feet are up by my hairline.
I saw it right away.
I don't see it.
I saw it before in the
If you don't see it, then you'll see it very clearly in the next photo. So you can go ahead and turn the mic off. And so here's what it looks like up close. Just an incredible gecko. I just love these things. Leaf-tailed geckos. Here's another one called a satanic leaf-tailed gecko. This one blends into the environment looking more like a dead leaf. Very easy to see here because my flash is shining on it. Well, those are incredible things. So we've seen incredible insects. We've seen incredible geckos. Well, some of the other species I'm going to show you are equally incredible. This one here is a chameleon. It's called a Parsons chameleon. Madagascar houses half of the world's chameleons, including the largest chameleon in the world and the smallest chameleon in the world. So this is the example of the smallest is the Brukesia chameleon. If you look at the bottom right, that's the micro chameleon they discovered in 2012. This chameleon is a full-grown adult sitting on a matchstick. That is the world's smallest chameleon. And not only the world's smallest chameleon, the world's smallest lizard ever discovered. The one up top that is that you have a photo there, that's about the size of my pinky finger. They live on the ground in the rainforest of Madagascar, underneath leaves and amongst leaf litter, so that's why they're so hard to find. Here's an example of a rhinoceros chameleon. This guy has the best schnoz in the animal kingdom. He was embarrassed for me because this one lived in my camp when I did my research, and he would see me with my small nose, and he was worried about me because they use their large noses to attract mates. And he thought I would never find a girlfriend because I had such a small nose. So that's called a rhinoceros chameleon. Well, the next one's really cool because it's a video of what chameleons do best. We know that they're good at changing colors. We know that they can move their eyeballs in different directions, but watch this quick little video, slow motion of a chameleon eating its prey. Gets the tongue ready, whack. Isn't that just incredible? So let's watch that again because it's totally worth it. You see they have these long tongues, almost the size of their body. They get them ready. They focus on their target with those eyes, launch that tongue, and zoop, back in the mouth. A delicious, delicious meal for a chameleon anyways. Well, you've seen some chameleons, you've seen some geckos. Madagascar hosts a whole bunch of really cool birds. This is the Lady Gaga bird, has beautiful eyeshadow just like Lady Gaga. They actually call it the crested kua. It's a bird that's only found in Madagascar. It's an entire family of birds found in Madagascar. They also have all sorts of different ones, like the top left there is a red forest foodie. The one on the right would be a Madagascar kingfisher. The bottom left is another group of birds only found in Madagascar called the vongas. This one's called the sickle-billed vonga. And similar to our bald eagles on the bottom right there, they have a fish eagle in Madagascar called the Madagascar fish eagle. Very rare, hard to find. But they happen to live where I work, and so they're a beautiful bird that is in that area. Roughly 400 bird species in Madagascar, and 200 of which are only found in the country. In fact, everything I've showed you up to this point are only found in Madagascar. You can't find any of these creatures somewhere else. Well, of course, you think of Madagascar, you think of lemurs, and hopefully you've had a chance to see the IMAX lemur documentary, which came out last year. And if you did, you saw this individual lemur. This is from a sanctuary in the middle of Madagascar. This is a black and white ruffed lemur. And it's neat to see them in the sanctuary because they're very hard to find in the wild. They live high up in the upper canopy of the rainforest, and so they live high up in the trees. This one was curious to see if my camera had a banana inside, and it was very disappointed to learn it didn't. But it was very cool to meet this lemur. And if you see the movie, you'll see this lemur in that movie. This, of course, is the Ringtail Lemur, and most famous as King Julian from the movie Madagascar, the cartoon. But that movie wasn't very accurate. If you actually looked at lemur groups and societies and knew something about lemurs, you would learn that lemurs are actually female dominant, and that the females are in charge. So it wouldn't really be any King Julian. It would actually be a Queen Juliet. And that female wouldn't be as silly as King Julian. This female would be smart. She would be strong. They're usually, the females are stronger, a little bit larger than the males, able to fight them for resources. And this particular female is eating some leaves in this beautiful flowering tree with a cute little baby on the back. And they're really incredible lemur species because they form more vocalizations than almost any other primate, with the exception of us. And so they have over 40 different distinct calls, which is quite unique for primates to have that many different calls. In fact, they have different types of calls that they've made up names just to describe the sounds that they make. Things like chuffs and meows and purrs, and they bark like a dog. They're really, really cool species. This is the smallest primate in the world, and it's called a Mouse Lemur. And there are tons of different mouse lemurs in Madagascar. There's over 20 different species. Here are two different ones here. The one on the bottom left lived in my camp, and every single day would come to my camp and would bounce around. Actually, many of them would come, and they would take a single bite out of every one of my bananas. Now, these aren't large bananas like we get here. These are medium-sized bananas, so you can even guess how small they are. They're only about 60 to 70 grams, and that's a little bit larger than an egg, so really, really small. And smart. So trying to protect your bananas from a smart mouse-sized primate is quite difficult. In fact, I never succeeded. They would always get them. And in the forest, they are like kids after Halloween. They are bouncing around the forest looking for their next sugar fix. like a ping pong ball following down a set of stairs. They're really, really fast, really, really agile, and they can jump really large distances. The next one is called a Sportive Lemur, and they're really cool. They're nocturnal lemurs, just like the mouse lemurs. They hang out at night. Giant eyeballs to absorb as much light so they can see at dark. And these ones make incredible leaps from tree to tree at night. And I'll show you a picture of a lemur making an incredible leap. But they do this at night. And this one, during the day, hides in tree holes to hide from birds of prey and snakes. Just in case some danger comes, they always have the opportunity to get sucked back into the tree. And I really like them because a friend of mine says they look like a furry little Yoda. With the new Star Wars movie coming out, every time I see them, they remind me of Yoda from Star Wars. Here it is, stuck in its tree, hiding from predators. And here's another cool one now. This is the common brown lemur, and I've caught it red-handed, stealing some fruits, and they love to eat fruits. And they're one of the most important species in Madagascar. Because of their large size, they eat lots of different types of fruit. And what ends up happening is they'll swallow the fruit, often with the seeds intact, and eventually the fruit will travel through its digestive system, and eventually when they go to the bathroom in a different location, they deposit the seeds of the fruit they ate previously. So this is called seed dispersal. So they help disperse the tree's seeds to different parts of the forest. And without them, the forest in Madagascar would not be filled with as many trees. There would not be as many different types of trees. So they're very, very useful species. In fact, many lemur species and many primate species are seed dispersers. So they're quite important to their ecosystems. And these ones are quite smart, and they would always visit our camp. They would jump around our tent platforms, and they would try to find fruit. They were really cool. Well, this next one is a super special lemur, and I think probably the cutest lemur in Madagascar. This is a bamboo lemur. And the bamboo lemurs are really cool because they only eat bamboo, just like a panda bear. They survive on this very strange plant that's very rich in cyanide. And so they're essentially eating poison. The amount of bamboo they would eat would actually make us very, very sick. But for some reason, they're able to tolerate all the different toxins that you have in bamboo, and they're able to digest that. So they're really interesting to study for that reason. Well, this is an example of one of the leaping lemurs. If any of you remember Zabumafu, sadly Zabumafu passed away not that long ago, about a year ago actually. But this is the relative of Zabumafu. It's called a Cockroach shafaka, and shafakas can jump up to 8 meters. That's almost 30 feet. There's another species of lemur can jump even further called Indri. I'll show them in a second. These ones jump from tree to tree, and they look like they're kangaroo practicing kung fu while they fly through the air. Really, really cool animal, really special. And I had the privilege of spending a few years studying this species when I lived in Madagascar. Now here's the largest lemur left in Madagascar. So you've seen the smallest primate. Well, this is the largest. Yet before the last few hundred years, there used to be a lemur the size of a gorilla. In fact, there were 16 different species of lemur bigger than this Indri. And subsequently, they've all gone extinct. And so there's lots and lots of different species that used to exist that were quite big. But this is the biggest one left, and it's the loudest lemur in Madagascar. And it reminds me of why lemurs are called lemurs. The word lemur actually means spirits of the dead. So let's listen to a short little video clip that a friend of mine made named Brian Keating. He made this video of Indris making the sound that they make that makes them famous. So we can get there, watch that here. I love those guys. The Indris are incredible. Well, part of the reality of Madagascar is that it isn't just filled with with wildlife, there's also many millions of people that live there. There's over 22 million people that live in Madagascar. And the sad thing is that their lives are very, very difficult. Unlike us, where we can just turn our taps to get water, or we can go to a store to buy food, they have to live off the land to survive and to feed their families. And to do that, they grow a lot of rice. They end up burning a lot of forests so they can graze their cattle. And it causes a lot of problems for both themselves and the environment. So after years and years of burning forests and burning grassland environments, you end up with situations like this, where you continually burn. The ground gets crusted, because the sun bakes it, and then it starts to erode. You can see a small black line in the middle of the photograph there. Well, that's an erosion scar. That's just from one single rain season. Now, after that rainy season, over a couple of decades, maybe 100 years, 200 years, you might get these massive canyons forming. They call these lavacas. And these lavacas have been stripped of all their organic material. There's no way forests can grow in these anymore because all of the stuff that forests and trees need is gone. And most of it is washed away into the sea, and is very difficult to get back, which is unfortunate. Well, that's a problem, but the main issue is that majority of people in Madagascar have almost nothing. If you look at this image, you'll see all the countries that are dark brown, most of them in Africa, some in Southern Asia, have very little money. So over 80% of people in Madagascar live on less than $2 a day. And 40% of children are malnourished. In fact, almost every person at your age in Madagascar would either be, half of them would be malnourished, or they'd be working by this point, just trying to bring in food for the family. And they'd be working the fields, they'd be working with cattle. Very few of the people that I meet in communities your age would still be in school. And so that's a problem. When I lived there, I lived with the local communities, and I thought, man, there has to be a way that we can help people have better lives, but also protect the environment. So I created this organization called Planet Madagascar. It's a community development, education, and conservation nonprofit. And we're working to find innovative solutions to sort of help people in Madagascar help us protect the environment and integrate data from the research that I do and research that others do into effective solutions. So in the top right, you can see a photo. That's the staff we have in Madagascar. They're out every week monitoring forests, trying to protect forests from fire. And it's been really exciting getting the project going. This is the beginning of the project. At the end of my research, I got some of the villagers together to come to agreement to help start protecting these forests. And eventually I went to the furthest southern part of the country to do some training into how to bring latrines to small remote communities, because many of the communities don't even have toilets. They don't even have outhouses, so they have no place to go to the bathroom that's safe and sanitary. We run education projects with school-age kids in Madagascar, and also do projects with the Royal Ontario Museum. We've educated over 1,600 kids about why lemurs are cool, and another 1,000 adults on top of that in 12 different communities. We take these cloths that you can see on the right-hand side. Those are called lambas. They're like sarongs. That's what they wear in a lot of the communities. And so we have a lamba with lemurs on it and a little message about why lemurs are important. We have kids playing lemur games with us. We have a fire break project that we built. So we've built over 6 kilometers of fire breaks, protecting forests from fire. This has employed 21 people in Madagascar. And currently we're working on a conservation education film that we're hoping to show to millions of people in Madagascar. That's our objective. And so we're actually looking for support for this project. It's a project that's going to be done in Malagasy, so the film would be for people in Madagascar. We're going to take it to remote villages, play it on TV in Madagascar, so we educate people about why fire is destroying forests and how that is negatively affecting their lives and what they can do about it. I'll play for you just a small little clip here, just so you can get an idea of how cool the video is going to be. And this is a clip we have for our Indiegogo campaign. So I can tell you how you can help us in a moment by spreading the word about this campaign. So let's play the video now.
Madagascar is home to over 100 species of lemur. These unique species are only found on this island.
Sadly, over 90% of lemurs are threatened with extinction. They are the most endangered mammal group in the world. Our objective is to help lemurs and their habitat. Fire is the biggest threat to tropical deciduous forests in Madagascar. Within Ancarofontes National Park, local residents are allowed to burn savanna areas to graze their cattle. The problem is that this burning can accidentally catch the tropical forest on fire, damaging lemur habitat and affecting people's livelihood. We plan to create a documentary to help educate people in Madagascar about the issues facing lemurs, forests, and the local residents who live in the national park. We need your help to make this possible.
With your donation, together we can make a difference, helping save lemurs, their habitat, and improving the lives of local communities through education and employment.
Great. So one of the ways you can help out with this is if you can spread the word about our campaign. The bottom in red there is the link. The more people you share the campaign with, the more likely we are to receive donations, which is great. We've received almost $15,000 already for this project, but we're trying to make it a longer film and to give it to as many people as possible. I mentioned we want to reach millions. And so with your help, hopefully we can get there. Now, I have to say thank you to you guys for listening, and I'm going to get you to turn on your mic, and I'll turn off my screen share here. And maybe we can get a few questions from you guys. Oh, there we got a few. So let's see here. I'll let you.
You want me to
show? Yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. Colby, go ahead. No, you can say yours.
Let me say, how did you learn about the fish eagle?
How did I learn about the fish eagle? Well, I was living in a place called Mpijiru, and it's actually well known because the lake there has a pair of fish eagles that live on this lake, and so I was able to see it almost every day. If I ever went down to the lake, I could see with my binoculars across the lake, and I could find it. Very often you could hear it, and I got to spend a lot of time with that fish eagle. And many people from around the world will visit this lake just to see the fish eagles that are there.
Cool. Doran, go ahead.
I've got both the question and the statement.
I just want the question, Doran. Nope, just the question. You want to rethink it? I'll come back to you. Okay, Camden, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Why are they called fish eagles?
The fish eagles are called fish eagles because they're just like our bald eagle. They hunt fish, and so they specialize in taking fish from lakes and rivers. And so they'll dive down and grab a fish, and our bald eagles do the same. And they have an ability when they grab onto a fish that their feet lock, and they're able to lift very heavy fish out of the water. And so that's why they call them fish eagles.
So I can ask her?
Rachel, then. Pardon?
About the devil's.
Sure, go ahead.
How is the devil's obstacle course formed?
So that's a good question. So basically millions of years ago, there was this big, massive coral reef, like a barrier reef, a continuous coral reef that ran along the western side of Madagascar. I'm not a geologist, but essentially this is how it worked. And that coral reef, a lot of coral reefs are made out of a limestone-like material, and so eventually full of calcium. And eventually, when the ocean receded from this area, Madagascar was sort of lifting up and away from Africa. It came and became exposed, and so they had this coral reef off the coast. And as it became exposed, erosion started wearing it down, forming these sharp pinnacles, and that's in essence how the Singi formed. So it occurred over millions of years.
Ryan.
What's your favorite species of lemur?
Oh, that's a very good question. My favorite species of lemur. Well, usually I say the Cockroach shafaka, the one that was Zabumafu, because they're very, very cute. But I have to give credit to the Mouse Lemur because even though they're just tiny little things, they're very cute and they're very easy to find in Madagascar. If you have a light, you can look for them at night. And so maybe I'm going to have to today. My favorite one is going to be the Mouse Lemur.
Greg.
Are lemurs making any adaptations to the new sort of survival that they have to do? Since all their
What was the question? Are lemurs doing anything to adapt to surviving in the new situation in Madagascar?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes, that's a very good question. These are all been great questions. So usually you have animals have usually lived with people for often thousands of years or even millions of years with different hominin ancestors. But in Madagascar, people only arrived 2,000 years ago, and that's very little time for a species to adapt. However, some of the species that I work with in areas where they're hunted or where they're feeling at risk, they're very difficult to find and very difficult to follow. Normally, it's very easy to find lemurs, but if you go to a place that they're hunted, then it's very, very hard. And that's a way they've adapted. Basically, they hide more. They don't make as much noise. They're quieter. So it's an adaptation to, mostly from hunting, adaptation to hunting. So they do adapt. The problem is that usually they don't adapt fast enough. And humans are clever and smart. And if you have to feed your families, you're going to be very motivated to find food. And so usually the adaptations can't keep up to that.
So would you say that's the biggest threat to extinction is with people hunting them?
In some areas, hunting is a big issue, but I wouldn't say that's the biggest overall. The biggest overall issue for lemurs is habitat. And most of that is disappearing because of people. They're burning grasses, which ends up burning forest. They're also burning forest and cutting down forest. And this is because most of them don't have much, and so they don't have the ability to think further in advance. They can think into the future, but there's just no point because they need to get food to survive next month. So it's hard for them to plan into the future, and they know that burning the forest is not going to be good in the future, but that doesn't help them today. They need to feed their families today. So mostly it's habitat loss, but in some areas, hunting is a big issue, and in some areas, those two things combine, and it's very destructive for lemurs.
Chris, go ahead.
What's the coolest bug that you've seen in Madagascar?
Ooh, well, I really love those the ones with the white fuzz on the back, the leaf flathead insects. But if you go to Madagascar, and one day I hope you do, when you get older, you go visit the country. If you go put like a bed sheet under a tree at night and shake the tree, out of the tree will rain down different insects. You will see things there that you didn't even know exist. In fact, you might even discover new species. They're always finding new insect species. So I really like that leaf flathead insect, but they had this cool spider that looked like a zebra. It had stripes on its legs. That was really cool. It's not an insect, obviously, it's an arachnid, but still a creepy crawly. One of the coolest ones that people know about is the Madagascar hissing cockroach. It's a very large cockroach. The adults can grow this big, this thick, and they hiss. And if you pat them on the back, they'll hiss at you. It's a sound they make. They have them often at zoos. They're really cool.
Greg, go ahead.
Why did you choose to research lemurs and bugs? Why didn't you do birds or elephants?
Okay, that's also another good question. We've got lots of things you can be when you grow up. Well, when I was 8 years old, my best friend asked me what I wanted to be, and when I was 8, that was obvious. I wanted to be a monkey, and so he was 9, so he was smarter than I was. He realized that that's not possible. And he said, "You can't be a monkey." So I said, "Fine, then I want to study monkeys." And then a few years later, when I was 17, I went to university. And I learned that you could take a degree called primatology. So you could take a degree studying monkeys. So I took that degree and I went as an 18-year-old. I saved up a lot of money. It took a lot of effort. And I worked a lot of jobs to do this. And I went to visit a country called Guyana, and I saw monkeys in the wild. And I knew at that moment that I wanted to do this for the rest of my life. And so I eventually picked lemurs because my interest was in how primates respond to destroying habitat. If we cut down and burn down habitat, what happens to the primates that are left over? And Madagascar, sadly, is losing more habitat than anywhere else in the world. And so that's where lemurs came into the picture, where I had to go see these incredible species. There's over 100 of them. And I had to see if there's something I could do to help them survive the destruction that's occurring in that country.
Camden.
Oh, when they that bug with the white, or the one that poops sugar.
Yeah, sugar pooping bird or sugar pooping bug.
Yeah, when they grow older and they become that red form, do they still poop sugar?
That's another question. And so I don't actually know the answer. I don't think they do. I think that they go on and they might be eating other stuff. It could be that they're eating nectar, but I'm pretty sure, and you can't quote me on this because I don't know for sure, but I think their adult lives are very short. And so they'll go, and what they're doing is they got those wings so they can leave their area and they'll go mate and then lay more eggs and start the whole process over again. But I haven't seen what the adults eat. It's possible they eat nectar, and in that case, they might be still pooping sugar. But the lemurs and birds won't eat that, because when the baby or the juvenile is clumped together, they all go to the bathroom in the same spot. So there'll be a mound about the size of my hand, and then about this high of waxy, sugary insect poop.
So, did your friend tried it and he didn't like it?
Well, he said it wasn't that bad, but the look on his face suggested to me it was terrible. So I decided that I'm not brave enough to try it. But you know what? After all these years, I'm going to go back and I'll try it, and I'll let you know if it tastes any good. I'll do a video.
When I'm 21, I'll go try some food.
Yeah,
I'd definitely try some bug food.
Thanks. Hey.
What predators do lemurs have other than humans?
Ooh, another good question. You guys have lots of great questions. So there's many different predators for lemurs. One of the ones that I remember being familiar with intimately was snakes. So they have a large boa that lives in Madagascar, and they hunt lemurs. And in fact, some of the larger lemurs will be eaten by snakes. Birds will eat lemurs. Things like harrier hawks and other raptors will eat lemurs. If you've heard of Fusa are a type of, they're similar to a mongoose, and they're found only in Madagascar. They're also in the Madagascar movie. They hunt lemurs as well, same with civets. And then domestic cats and dogs will sometimes eat lemurs as well. So there's lots of actual predators to lemurs.
So if lemurs are removed from the food chain, what will happen to the biodiversity there?
Oh, if you took out all the species of lemurs, the entire food chain would collapse. It wouldn't take. In some places it would be. You would see it overnight. In other places, it would cause problems for thousands of years. Mainly because of that seed dispersal. Because many lemurs will disperse seeds, they help promote the growth of forests. And so 1,000 years later, you would see the forest would look very different. There would be much fewer species. The predators would have very few things to eat. And there'd probably be a shift. You'd get lots of other species that are not found in Madagascar sort of filling the void of lemurs. And so you'd go there and you'd find probably things like there'd be more rats, and there'd be more other species that would compete with lemurs now.
Owen.
What do you hope to do if you get like a lot of money to help with your organization with the lemurs?
Ooh, if I get a lot of money, well, I hope our goals with our project is that people will be able to live happy and healthy lives in and around forests that still have lemurs. The idea is that when you guys go to Madagascar and you visit the project that I'm working with, there'll be people there, they'll be living good lives, and there'll still be lemurs there. That's my hope. And so the more money we get, the more we can either expand our project to other communities or to expand sort of our reach. We want to do health projects, we want to do sanitation projects, water projects, development projects so that they can have better jobs, reforestation so we can bring back some of the forest, more forest protection through our fire projects that we do now. So we have lots of plans for money. It's very hard to find money. It's very difficult to get the money that we need to do this. As you know from watching the news, there's lots of problems in the world. But if we ended up getting a lot of money, we could do a lot of stuff. But it doesn't take a lot. I have lots of schools donating amounts. One bake sale, they bring in $100. Well, that is, I can hire 20 people for one day to help protect forest. And so that's a major amount of money for Madagascar. And so to us, it's not a lot of money, but it works out to be quite a bit of money over there.
Perfect. We got time for one more, I think, Travis, Tracy?
What's the most common species of lemurs?
Ooh, the most common species. Well, they have the common brown lemur. That's the one who is eating the fruits. They're found throughout the entire island, but actually the most common would be a type of mouse lemur. It's called the gray mouse lemur, Microcebus marinus. And they're not only found throughout most of the island, but they're in very high density. So you'll find dozens and dozens in a single walk. If you walk for 3 or 4 kilometers, you might find 25 different mouse lemurs. They're kind of like squirrels are here. They're just everywhere.
Perfect. Okay, Travis, thank you so much. Our bell's going to ring here shortly. We appreciate
it. Being explored by the Cedar Plants as well. Thanks for joining us.
it.